Hi everybody! Today we are going to be paleontologists. A paleontologist is a person who studies the history of life on our Earth, and right now we are going to learn about how horses came onto our Earth. But before we learn about how horses and humans came to be together, we first need to think all the way back to the beginning of time. And for all you elementary children who have been doing work with the timeline of life in your classrooms, try to imagine what that timeline looks like in your mind as I tell you the story. The history of the horse began about 55 million years ago within the Paleogene period, called the Eocene epoch. This period came way after the Cambrian, where sea jellies and trilobites were first alive, and it came after dinosaurs roamed our Earth and then became extinct. The first horse didn't really look like a horse at all, based on what fossil findings looked like. The first horse was called the Eohippus, or the dawn horse. Fossils of the Eohippus were found in the continents of North America and Europe. These horse ancestors were small, only standing 20 inches tall. They had an arched back, and they had pads on their feet, similar to a dog's, instead of the hard hooves that modern-day horses have. The Eohippus had 4 toes on their front feet and 3 toes on their back feet. Their brain was smaller, and their teeth sharper, because they were thought to have a rougher diet of twigs and leaves. Time passed, and as it did, the Eohippus evolved to adapt to the changing Earth. It grew in size, its feet began to lose their toes and harden, their brains grew bigger, and their teeth changed as they began grazing on grasses. Paleontologists saw changes in the fossils they discovered, and they named this next horse ancestor the Mesohippus. They discovered that this ancestor lived in the Oligocene epoch, which was about 33 million years ago. The Mesohippus had a longer neck, and their legs were more slender. The Mesohippus slowly evolved into the Miohippus during the early Miocene epoch, which was 23 million years ago. The Miohippus was even larger and was thought to travel over a land bridge into an area of the Earth known as Eurasia. You see, as animals were evolving, so was our land. Our continents used to be one land mass, and as time went on, they began separating into the continents we know today. The Merycopods was the next ancestor that paleontologists discovered. These horses had fully developed teeth set for grazing on grass. The North American plains were widespread at this time, and the Merycopods had ample food supply in the grasses that they ate. These horses began to really start looking like the modern-day pony. They were about 40 inches tall, and they had adapted their bones in their body to allow for swift running. These ancestors still had 3 toes, but their hooves began to harden, and their toes shrunk, some not even touching the ground. 4 million years ago, in the Pliocene period, the Equus evolved. This is the genus that all of our modern horses come from. The Equus traveled to Asia and to Europe, but they started to disappear in North and South America about 10,000 years ago. Researchers thought that maybe they died off from a disease or from the emergence of early humans who hunted them for food. The Przewalski's horse, which originated in the Pleistocene period, is thought to be the last remaining wild horse species in the world. It wasn't until 6,000 years ago that the horses who did survive began to be domesticated by humans. Domesticated means being trained by humans to do specific jobs. It is thought that the first domesticated horses lived in Kazakhstan, a country near Russia. Horses were trained to be ridden so that people could hunt other animals, collect food more efficiently, and explore the region. In other parts of the world, horses were used to drive chariots, plow fields, and they were even used for warfare. Now that we have cars to take us places and tractors to plow our fields, the relationship between horses and people have changed. Today, horses are mainly used for sports such as horse racing, jumping shows, and rodeos, and they are also lovely pets. Looking back at all of those millions of years ago, when the first horse roamed the earth, isn't it amazing how much the horse species has changed, and how differently the world must have been back then? I hope this story about the history of the horse has inspired you to think about time and how animals, like the horse, can evolve and adapt in the world it lives in.